Remember, you already know all the stuff. The pauses are not for your benefit. They are for the juror's benefit. And when you don't do them, you're leaving them behind and you're leaving your client's verdict even more to chance. Welcome to the Foster Your Voice podcast with me, Christy Foster. After a 30-year career in music and theater, I never imagined I'd be coaching trial attorneys. But once I entered your world, I quickly realized how critical and underutilized voice is in the courtroom. The truth is, you don't win trials with brute strength. You win with your voice. I'll give you tools to unlock your voice so you can communicate not just with purpose, but on purpose. If you want quick action tips to help you stay calm and in control, keep jurors engaged, and inspire your listeners to action, all through the power of your voice, you're in the right place. I'm Christy Foster, and I'm here to help you foster your voice. Hello, Foster fam. Welcome back to another episode where we continue our mini voice lessons to start learning some vocal technique. This is a series on the 5 building blocks of vocal development: pitch, pace, melody, volume, and tone. In the last episode, we played around with pitch, exploring how, when, and why you can and should use chest voice, middle voice, and head voice all throughout trial. If you missed last week, make sure to go back and review. You don't need to listen to these in order, though. The order I'm going through is not to suggest any hierarchy. Each building block is independent of the other, but they work in tandem together to help you fashion your voice into the most powerful tool in your trial prep toolbox. Today, then, we're going to go over pace and melody. So let's get into it. When we're talking pace, we're talking about the speed in which you speak, your natural cadence. Now, your natural cadence must be paired with pausing. How often you need to pause? Way more than you think or what feels natural to you. Your audience, jurors in this case, can either gather information or process information. We don't do both at the same time. Gathering information is sensory input, but processing is a separate cognitive act. This is all rooted in cognitive load theory, which says our working memory, where active thinking happens, is limited. Our brains can only hold and manipulate a few pieces of information at a time. So when too much information comes in without time to process, overload happens and comprehension drops off real fast. Processing happens in the pause. So if you aren't pausing enough, you're going to lose your jury to cognitive overload. Think of it like save on a computer. Now, I'm dating myself a little because nowadays computers do autosave by default. But that didn't used to be the case. I had to learn the hard way too many times that if you didn't save your work, you lost your work. Anyone else have to start college research papers over again when you're already pulling an all-nighter? No, just me? Okay. Pausing is like letting your jury click save. It's not an auto function. They need you to give them a moment to do it. Pausing also helps jurors put things into context. For example, when you have a date that you mention, pause immediately after saying the date so jurors have a moment to think, well, what was happening in my life at that time? It's important to remember that your case is not just about your client. It's about a principle that, when ignored or lived out recklessly and with negligence, will impact the jurors as well. I think it was David Ball who first introduced the concept of spreading the tentacles of danger. The idea refers to demonstrating how the defendant's actions pose a broader risk to society or to the jurors themselves, making the danger feel immediate and personal. Well, that starts with you giving them a moment to pause and put themselves into the context of the story. So don't skate by dates or timelines. Pause. Let the jury anchor themselves in it. Okay, so how long exactly do I need to pause, Christy? I know you want exact numbers. Well, this is determined by your natural speech cadence. If you're a fast talker, you need to pause often, and you need to make each pause longer than seems reasonable. If you're a slower talker, you still need to pause often, but the length doesn't have to be as long. Now, regardless, all your pauses will feel like an eternity to you. When you're in that place of discomfort, your length of pause is probably close to being right. Remember, you already know all the stuff. The pauses are not for your benefit. They are for the juror's benefit. And when you don't do them, you're leaving them behind and you're leaving your client's verdict even more to chance. So, pacing is about your natural cadence and your relationship to pausing as a result of your cadence. Okay, now that I've really hammered home the idea of nice, even pacing with great pausing, I'm going to talk out of the other side of my mouth because there's great value in not being even and steady. It's important to provide some disruption to the evenness strategically to get us out of the sabotaging patterns that lull folks into dangerous complacency. This is particularly true when you're in the storytelling sections of your opening. As the danger of your story ramps up, so should your pace. Talk faster, especially when there's a car crash or a slip and fall. Speed up your cadence to help sonically represent the chaos of the moment, and then be able to contrast it with the stillness that comes after the car stops spinning, after your client has landed hard on the ground. Use a faster pace when you're driving home a point. When you're ramping up the righteous indignation that you feel and that you give the jury permission to feel, that requires a faster pace. So then you can juxtapose it with the weight of the decision they need to make. Can you feel how pace can be used as a vocal building block to infuse meaning into your words? It's powerful. You know what I hate? Being misunderstood. It's actually one of my biggest fears, if I'm honest, right up there with birds. Yes, I'm afraid of birds. Leave me alone about it already. Being misunderstood is just the worst, though. Trying to communicate something and seeing that it's just not landing the way you intend. Too harsh of tone with your kid or spouse that ended up setting them off. A thinking face that got interpreted as annoyance or irritation and ended up shutting down the conversation and leaving you baffled. It's so frustrating in our personal lives, but in the courtroom, your mismatched communication profile could break your case and lose you a deserving verdict. So, I've created a free guide to get you thinking about the emotional profiles you create. It's a printable guide to help you 10x your communication impact by mastering 6 emotional profiles for clear and authentic connection. I break down the 6 core emotions: happy, sad, love, pride, anger, and fear by giving you face, body, and breathing cues. Plus, I show you exactly which point on a 1 to 10 scale you should be with your pitch, pace, melody, volume, and tone in order to authentically capture the center of that core emotion. The link to get your free guide is in the show notes or by simply going to my website, fostervoicestudio.com. Don't wait to clear up your part of miscommunication and misunderstandings. Get your free download today. Now, the third building block, and the second one we'll cover today, is melody. You may recognize that as a musical term, and you may think, oh my gosh, she's gonna make me sing. Just a little side note. Did you know studies consistently show that a significant portion of the population experiences anxiety or fear when it comes to public speaking, which also encompasses singing in public? In fact, some surveys even show that the fear of public speaking is more prevalent than the fear of death itself. So no, I'm not going to make you sing, but let's explore some non-singing applications of melody. First off, what is it? Well, it's the shape of the tune of your voice, the direction your voice goes as it moves through chest voice, middle voice, and head voice. Again, if you haven't listened to episode 13, you'll want to visit it so you know the different voices I just said. There are 3 possible shapes to your vocal phrase. 3 variations on melody: ascending melody, descending melody, and monotone melody. Okay, so let's practice each one. Here's the little voice lesson part. So repeat after me. Start from the bottom and work your way up. Again. Start from the bottom and work my way up. That's ascending. The melody is going up. Now, descending. Start from the top and then work my way down. Once again, start from the top and then work my way down. Now, pick one pitch and try to stay there for monotone. Stay on one pitch and try not to move. Do it again. Stay on one pitch and try not to move. It's okay to have a little bit of movement so you don't sound robotic, but the point is that it's pretty static, the opposite of dynamic. Okay, now as always, we ask ourselves the question, when in the world would I use these in trial? Now, with a keen ear, you might have just heard me do something. I'll demonstrate it again here in a second. First, though, let me take you way back to kindergarten, let's say. We all learned at an early age that when you end a sentence, your voice goes down. And when you ask a question, the voice goes up. But we were lied to. Shout out to Mrs. Kurth, my kindergarten teacher, who I know was not a malicious liar. However, the rules we were taught are not as hard and fast as we were maybe led to believe. So let me do my demonstration again. Listen for the melody. Okay, now as always, we ask ourselves the question, when in the world would I need to use these in trial? Did you notice? Did you hear it? I reversed the hard and fast rule. I went up for the statement part and down for the question part. And it made perfect sense. It didn't feel disjointed or incorrect. Why is that? Because melody isn't just about indicating punctuation as much as it's about the direction of energy. You can hear as I begin talking, I'm using ascending melody, and you might feel it suspending the energy, so you know it's still my turn to speak. Now, listen carefully. We do not want to have a pattern, ever. So you should never find yourself speaking how I just demonstrated. I'm just doing it so you can hear that particular suspension of energy. But just like we don't want to find ourselves in a pattern of ascending melody, we also don't want to find ourselves in a pattern of descending melody. Hear how I'm constantly descending, always landing in the same spot, and it becomes really hard to listen to. Okay. I'm modeling extreme application here just for demonstration purposes. But don't be surprised if now that you understand how melody works and how it shifts and suspends energy, you'll start to notice when people do get stuck in patterns and notice how it makes you feel and how it impacts how you learn from them. So, while we don't want melodic patterns, we definitely want an easy mix and playfulness of tune as you use both ascending and descending melody throughout trial. Okay, but what about monotone? That was the third option, right? Should we avoid being monotone? Well, yes and no. Avoid it as a pattern, just like you avoid ascending and descending patterns. But there is a time and a place for using monotone melody. Like when you want to slow down the action, when there's thoughtfulness and contemplation, whenever you physically still yourself for an intentional moment, you should vocally flatten out as well. Slight variations so you don't sound robotic, but definitely not as dynamic and active of a shape of melody. Can you hear that difference? Can you feel that difference? All three have purpose, they infuse meaning, and help you shape the energy of your presentation. Now, next week, we're going to continue our series on the 5 building blocks by discussing volume. And also, a really interesting thing that happens when we combine a secret formula. So you don't want to miss that. Until next week, keep fostering your voice. Thanks for pulling up a seat with me today and for being part of the Foster fam. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, go ahead and leave a review or a comment so I can give you a shout out on a future episode. During the week, you can find me on Instagram at Foster Voice Studio, where I'm dropping little nuggets of vocal technique and leadership wisdom. You can also join my mailing list by visiting fostervoicestudio.com or by clicking the link in the show notes. I'll send a weekly vocal tip every Tuesday directly to your inbox. Until then, keep fostering your voice.